All right. Well, what did you think when you saw the video of S1 going off on Mysonne?
Well, I knew you was going to put me in the middle of this.
You are an extension of Bang Bang Boogie, okay? Come on, man. You're like, you know, you was there.
I mean, with Mice, there's been tension in the group a few times. You know.
What, you talking about with Red Child?
Yeah, with Red Child.
You was there?
Oh, not at the actual fight. That fight, I know they was about to fight. Another time when we was in Long Island at the outside of some studio, there was a situation there. But, you know, listen, some people just don't get along, bro. Some people just, everybody can't get along, you know.
Okay, but what did you think of the video, though, of S1 going off on him? Were you surprised when you saw it?
I definitely was surprised, but, you know, it sounds like S got a lot of things that he wants to say, and he hasn't been able to speak to him, you know? I really don't know the situation. I really don't know the situation, bro. Like, I see, you know, with me personally, with the relationship with Mice, I called Mice a few times to do a few things for me. He never said no. He always got on tracks. He always, you know, he was always willing to participate on whatever I had hit him up to do. So I never really had no bad relationship with Mice, you know.
How many years ago was this, though?
Yeah, but how many years I haven't been around doing the music? You know, people evolve, you know. Some people change. Some people get bougie. Some people, you know, I don't be around like that in the streets like that. I go in the clubs like that, you know what I mean? So, you know.
I know, but we have to judge because of right now, this is how the new Mysonne, how he is now basically interacting with S1.
He's also trying to go like almost into, like I said, I don't really know the extent of what's going on. You know, I know Mike used to go visit him. You know what I mean? So I really don't know the situation. Like I said, I don't like getting in the middle of all that. I just been seeing a lot of stuff, but it sounds like S got a few things he got to say to him. You know what I mean? Right. And, you know, and if somebody's throwing shots at you and you can't physically see the person or get in touch with the person, you're going to do the next best thing. You're going to get on him. You're going to vent so that person can hear it and be like, all right, so now you know how I feel about you, bro. So now you could either reach out to me or come see me. So that way we could either, one or the other, we could talk about it and move on from there. But, you know, it's just like the same situation with Hulk and Cuban, you know. Hulk felt like this guy keeps throwing a little, so he going to respond. So that's how S probably felt like he was throwing a few shots at him. So he responded.
Well, he ended up apologizing after the first video, and then he went at him again, right?
Right.
And he was narrating the video of Mice fighting that guy, and I think in the hotel lobby or something.
Uh-huh.
Yo, that I'm not gonna lie, that shit was pretty funny though.
It was funny.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
It was funny. I didn't comment on it. I'm not gonna be an instigator, but it was funny.
Well, when I interviewed S, he said Mice told him, yo, I can do this for you, I can do that for you. But when he got home, it's like there was no follow through. And I think that people need to be a little more careful when they say certain things, because it's like people depend on that. You know, they take your word for it.
Man, roll a clip.
Yeah, no, what I was saying was that, like, by him coming to see you and saying like, yo, I can help you do this, I could put you in this position, it set like a unrealistic expectation for you to feel like, yo, my brother really got me. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you thinking, okay, like this is a real one. This is what he's really saying. But then when it's coming time for action, you didn't really see that. So then, of course, I think anyone in your position would feel a type of way.
Yeah, of course, because I know Mysonne. But 15 years is a long time. You know, people change, the heart change, the mind change. Every day we're changing, growing, developing. And if you don't want me a part of your evolution, cool. But tell me that. You could just be like, yo, S, right now I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'll get back to you another time, or we'll chop it up later. Just, you know, somehow give me some type of, yo, I'll holler at you later. Right now I can't embrace you, but don't ignore my phone calls. You know what I'm saying? Don't do that.
Right. And I think though that, you know, sometimes people do things like that if they feel guilty. You know what I'm saying? They know that like maybe they should be doing something for you, or should they told you something, you know, and then because they can't do it, then I don't know. But I think the best way is always to be transparent, right? To be forthcoming with the so that the person knows exactly, so they're not thinking like, damn, like, you know, the mind can wander and start to think all types of stuff.
Yeah.
Especially coming from prison, because that happened to me a few times, you know. While I was in prison, I did favors for certain people, and they promised certain things, and then when you come home, you expecting that because a man's word is his bond, and then when you come home and then it's empty promises, you know, you feel, you know, you feel disappointed in the person, but more than disappointment is anger, because you was dependent on that, you know, those things that was promised to you to be able to move forward. That's why sometimes it's better not to depend on nobody and just, you know, I learned to do that. I learned that the hard way after I came home, not to depend on anybody. You know what I mean? The only one I ever depended on was my mother, you know what I mean? Because no matter what, she was always there for me. But other than that, I ain't really depend on nobody.
And I think that's what Hocus told S1. He was all like, bro, like, fuck everybody else. Like, you just got to do it on your own, you know? But I just think that, like, to Mysonne, it might not be anything, or to a person in that kind of position where it's like, oh, I said that, but you know, it's not a big deal. But it's like, to the person that is like, you're saying it to, like you said, they're hanging on to that word, right? They're like,
man, listen, it's a lot of things is out of sight, out of mind. You know what I mean? It's like, that's how life is. You know, when you're in prison, it's like you buried alive. You know, life around you moves on, but you still stuck in that time when you went in. So it's like any little thing that happens, those memories, friendships, everything you hold on to. So all those years you in prison, you still thinking about those friendships and those relationships and the promises and stuff. So when you come out, that's the first thing you're thinking about. So, you know, you hold men accountable for their actions and their words. You know, that's the only thing we really got in this life is our word. You know what I'm saying? And our actions, you know, that it's just the way it is, bro. You know, you got to stand on your word. You know, whether you're right or wrong, you got to stand on it. You know?